In this video, we're going to continue our discussion of activity-based costing. So if you remember from our last video, we had the example where we have a firm that you started that makes bicycles and it makes skateboards, and we had some overhead that included both manufacturing overhead and SG&A, customer support costs. And we basically put it into cost pools, right? We came up with these cost pools and we spread our cost of $2.5 million over these different pools. And we did it based on these percentages that we came up with after interviewing our employees. And then we were able to apply those percentages to get our first stage allocation to spread this cost over the cost pools. And ultimately, by dividing by our activity measure, whether it be units, the number of orders, the number of customers, we're able to come up with multiple activity rates instead of having to use one plant-wide standard rate based on machine hours or something like that. And so in this video, we're going to talk about how we would go about using these activity rates now that we've calculated them. So there are a number of things we might do, but the main idea is that we're going to basically use these rates to assign overhead to cost objects. And the way that I'm going to show you to do that in this video, we'll talk about a really simple way. We'll just say based on product line, right? So we'll say we've got our bicycle product line and our skateboard product line, and we're just going to go ahead and calculate, allocate all the cost from that overhead bucket to each product line. This isn't the only way that you can use activity-based costing. We could also even look at costing these things out for a specific job, a specific order. But I'm just going to look at it based on product line right now. And then we'll compare each product line in terms of its costs. So let's say that in terms of assembly, right, in terms of actually assembling the units, that remember we said we have 500,000 units. So let's say it's just split down the middle. We've got 250,000 bicycles and 250,000 skateboards that we produce. So it's just half and half. We just say, okay, you know, half of the stuff we produce is bikes and half is skateboards. Well, how do we go ahead and allocate that cost? Well, we've got our rate of $3 a unit. So we just take this 250,000 and we say, okay, that's at $3 a unit. So that just gives us $750,000 for the cost. That's in terms of the assembly. We're talking about the overhead. Again, this doesn't include direct materials, direct labor. And then for the skateboards, again, we just take that $250,000 at that $3, which I get from up here, and that's going to give us $750,000 again. So now we look at allocating the processing costs, the cost of processing the orders. So let's say that for the bicycle product line, we actually have 900 orders. And then for the skateboard product line, let's say it's 100. Okay. So when we allocate this, we just go back to our rate, right? And that's $250 an order that we calculated before. So I'll just say at 250. And so we just take 900, multiply it by 250, and that's going to give us $225,000. The same logic, we just take these 100 orders for the skateboard, and then that's at $250 an order, which we calculated here above. And so we just take this $100 and multiply it by 250, and that's going to give us $25,000. Now our third cost pool is the customer support, and we're going to allocate that based on, let's say we have 175 customers. There are 175 bike shops that order our bicycles. And then we have 25 customers for the skateboards. There's 25 skate shops that we sell our skateboards to. And so we're going to allocate the cost based on this $3,125 that we calculated as the activity rate above. So then for here, we'll just say, okay, 175 customers at $3,125. And that's going to come out to $546,000 $546,875. And then for the 25 customers for the skateboard product line, again, we're just going to say at $3,125, and that's per customer, and that's going to give us $78,125. Now, again, we just took the 25 customers and multiplied it by our rate of $31.25 per customer. Now what we can do is we can sum up these costs for each one. Let me just change, we'll change colors here. So we sum up our grand totals, and then we'll interpret this information. But so let's say we've got $1,521,875 for the bicycle product line, and then for the skateboard product line we have $853,125. Now, if you add these up, if you add these two up, they're not going to add up to $2.5 million, which, if you remember, that was our original overhead that we were dealing with. And the reason is that we're not allocating this other category. Remember we talked about that? There might be a factory lease or something, and we said, okay, this is not applicable for an activity measure or activity rate. We don't really want to focus on that, because what we call a cost like that is an organization sustaining cost. And what we mean by that is if we decide we don't want to produce bicycles anymore and drop that product line, we're still going to need our factory to produce skateboards. So we're just going to go ahead and ignore this other category in the sense that we're not actually going to allocate it. So we're just allocating the other three cost pools that we're spreading out here. Now, if you notice, the bicycle product line has a lot more customers, 175 instead of 25 for the skateboards, and it also has a lot more orders, 900 orders instead of 100. So we have basically 25 skate shops that are just, ordering a few times a year, but basically the bicycle division, we've got a ton of customers. We got a lot of customers, and they're ordering quite frequently. So even though technically we have the same number of bicycles that we're producing and the same number of skateboards, that's a little deceiving when it comes to thinking about the overhead in terms of processing orders, dealing with customer complaints and warranty issues for support. Really, most of those costs are being driven by the bicycle product line. Now, we see this number, $1,521,875, is basically, it's almost double the skateboard product line. So now, does this mean that, well, hey, we should drop the bicycle product line altogether or something, or that there's some kind of problem? Well, no, that doesn't mean that. Of course, we have to remember that there's also direct materials costs that are involved. There are direct labor costs that are involved, and we haven't even considered those here, right? We're just trying to allocate the costs that are not so easily traceable, and activity-based costing is giving us a much more efficient and accurate way to do that than if we had just looked at machine hours or something like that with one overarching plant-wide rate that wouldn't have given us this amount of detail, wouldn't have teased out the fact that the bicycle product line is actually responsible for a lot more of the overhead. Now that we have better information and we say, whoa, this bicycle product line is really driving a lot of the overhead costs, that can help us make better decisions, right? We've got more accurate information. We might say, you know what, we want to charge a higher price for our bicycles than what we've been charging. So when we have better information, we can make better decisions. And so ultimately, activity-based costing is really driving down into what are the components of the overhead, what is really driving it, and how can we get the most accurate information for costing our products.